Before we get into the video, I just want to forewarn you that we are going to be working with acid. Make sure you are in a well-ventilated area. You're taking all safety precautions, not only when you're working with and around acid, but also when disposing of it. Keep in mind that I'm working in my garage with the door open, with fans turned on. The smell of acid and vinegar can be overwhelming. Make sure that you take, again, all safety precautions when working with this stuff so you don't die. Hey everybody, Matt here. So I started making this video on this project I wanted to do that involves stripping the bluing from these magazines and then coating them in nickel. And for some reason my GoPro didn't record like the first several minutes of the intro. So this is all I got. First, I'm going to go over the materials that I used, most of which can be found on Amazon, and you are going to see a link to everything in the description or the pinned comment, if I can remember. There were a few things that I did not buy off of Amazon, and that's going to be the muriatic acid, white distilled vinegar, and distilled water. And the reason I didn't buy those off of Amazon is because they were just much cheaper for me to buy at the local hardware store. Or if you don't have a local hardware store, pool supply companies will have the acid, and you can go to just like Walmart for the vinegar and water. Everything else, though, I got from Amazon for pretty cheap. I think all in, it was like $80 or so. And the cool thing about this is if you want to get into plating, you can just kind of reuse everything over and over again. So once you commit to buying these supplies, then the investment going forward isn't that big. So let me go over here with you what I used. First, you're going to need some muriatic acid, some white distilled vinegar, and some plain distilled water. You'll also need some nickel strips, copper wire, safety gloves. I had to buy a couple mason jars. I didn't have any. I also used a couple plastic containers, which I did have lying around. Titanium rod, at least one, but it was cheaper just to buy a 5-pack. Baking soda, power supply. All right, let's get this set up. So I have my power supply over here, and I have the alligator clips at the ready. I'm going to take one of my nickel bars and bend the top so that it will hang over the container. Like so. And do the same thing with the second one. Hook up the positive clip. This is the anode. Hook up the negative. This is the cathode. White vinegar into the container. And maybe like tablespoon of salt. All the other YouTube videos I watched, they weren't very strict on how much salt to put in there. That's kind of about what they were doing. And I'm going to turn on my power supply. Current I'm going to set at 3 amps. And voltage 24. These are numbers, again, I've watched several YouTube videos on how to do this, and this is kind of the consensus of where to start when you make your solution. Keep in mind, I'm just some dude in his garage messing around doing this for the first time. I only hold a YouTube university degree in this, so we're all kind of learning together. Whether I do things successfully or not, we'll find out. As you can see, the current is alternating here a little bit. It is now dipped down to 2.6. And I have it set to 3. So I'm guessing it's just going to kind of churn away, hover around the 3 or so. So now we're going to let it sit here, and oh, it's already turning a tint of green. That's exactly what we want. So we're going to let this churn for a few minutes, and I'll be back. Okay, next I have these 2 mason jars filled with distilled water, one of which I'm going to put, I don't know, about a tablespoon of baking soda into. Next will be the disassembly of the magazines. I bought this used. The M10 I purchased used, so he threw in these extra magazines. They have different finishes on them. This is very flat. This one's a little bit more polished. I think this one's aftermarket, and I think this one's factory. The aftermarket one came with a nickel base plate, which is really strange, but you can tell that the shape of the followers is different. The one that I believe is aftermarket, this more matte finish, is round up here at the top, and this one is sharp. And all of the M10 magazines I've ever seen, the top of that follower is pointy, not round like this one. So I think that's aftermarket, but anyhow, should work, no big deal. So if you've never taken these apart, pretty easy. There's some crud in the recessed area of this base plate. Nothing too bad on the bodies, but I do want to scrape out as much of that as I can before I do this next step. So I just have some 409 and a brush, cleaning brush. Next step is going to be stripping the bluing, which is what this container is going to be for, and the muriatic acid. This is where I definitely am going to put on some gloves. All right, I have gloves on, and of course I bought medium by mistake, but oh well. Blued parts go into the acid. Like so. That's very, very pungent smell. You definitely need to do this in a ventilated area. And be careful whatever you touch with next with your gloves. Okay, that looks stripped pretty good. I'm gonna dip this into the water with the baking soda. This is a different finish. That is obviously not coming off, so boo on you. To neutralize it. And flip it around. And then a dunk in the clean distilled water. Into the clean water. All right, so I had to go back in time because I forgot which guts of the magazines went to which bodies. Turns out the one that I can't coat was the top one, and that is the one that came with the base plate that was already nickeled. I think that got kind of Frankenstein together. And in the process of reviewing that footage, I did leave the body of the other magazine in that acid. I hope it hasn't been in there for way too long. And let's take a look. It is still coming off. I have other magazines if this one gets ruined. It's not like they're expensive or anything. We're about 2 hours into the process. You can see that the solution has turned a deep green, which is exactly what we want. You'll also notice that the two pieces of nickel look a little different. The anode side over here, the positive, is being eaten away. So nickel's being removed from it. It's going into the solution. And some of the particles are also being attracted onto the cathode side, which is causing these little pieces to form that apparently are called dendrites. You're going to notice particles also in the bottom of the container, which I'm going to filter out next. So I think I'm pretty good here, pretty saturated, the solution, and I'm going to take those pieces out. I'm going to filter the garbage that's in the bottom with a coffee filter, and so I'll have nice clean solution to start the plating process. Now I have the solution strained and cleaned. One thing you should know about this solution is it's going to heat up, which is normal. If you can use this over and over several times, I don't know how many times exactly. I don't know how to test when it, to see if it's depleted or not. But if you are using it cold, you will need to heat it up per the YouTube geniuses I have been following. And the consensus says, I don't know, around 100, anywhere from 120. I've seen up to 180 degrees. So you might want to put this on a hot plate to warm it up. But because I just made this as a fresh batch, it's already warm. So I'm good there. So the next thing I'm going to do is take my copper and make little hangy devices for my parts. And this is where your titanium rod's going to come into play. Just going to hang the piece from the rod into the solution, just like that. Attach the negative lead and turn the power on. Now, it probably hasn't done anything yet, but I want to take a peek. Oh, wow. I think it's plating already. Holy cow. Look at science go. I did see in some of the videos that you don't want the bubbles to linger on the piece too much, otherwise it can create like shadows and stuff. And also when you are dealing with certain shapes, because the main source or a source of nickel is here on this side, that you do sometimes want to rotate your part around so it gets evenly coated. And you can tell it's already starting to work if you look at the piece of copper wire there that was submerged. That's coated. That's coating. All right, look at that. That is nickel plated. That's awesome. So this is where I sanded it down with some 400 grit and then 1000 grit sandpaper. You can see it's more shiny now, polished. There are some surface imperfections, and that's actually in the metal. So I'm not sure if that stuff was hidden by the bluing or if I made them when I was sanding it and messing with it prior to plating. Or the etching process with the acid. But that is one thing about plating, is it just plates. It doesn't fill anything in, so it will show imperfections. Now for the magazine body, I actually pre-sanded it to a slight polish to see what that looks like, doing it ahead of plating instead of after plating. And just after a few short seconds, you can already see that it is starting to plate.
Now, another thing that I found out about plating is that you don't want to leave it in there for too long, nor do you want your amperage too high, because what can actually happen is those little dendrites that form in the solution can attach itself or form on your workpiece, and then you have these jagged little pieces attached to it. And that's another reason why they do recommend that you kind of shake it, get all the bubbles off. And you also want to pay attention to the plating time, because the plating can get thicker and thicker. So if you have tolerances you need to stay within, be aware of that. All right, so it's been in there for about 5 minutes. And you can see that it is plated pretty good, actually. I'm going to wash this off in some distilled water. Get all the vinegar off of it. And here's the final result. You can see there are, again, some slight imperfections on the magazine body. Again, I'm just some hack in his garage experimenting. I'm not a professional by any means. But if I had prepped that surface prior to plating more diligently, I don't have a buffing wheel or anything, but that definitely would have made a big difference. So this is good for my purposes. I am going to probably polish this up with some metal polisher. But overall, that turned out to be a pretty cool little experiment, and it did work. Oh, and I didn't show you guys, but it did plate the inside as well. Even though there was a little bit of bluing left still, it plated everything else, and I'm not really concerned with the inside. So that was kind of cool. But if you guys have any questions or comments, go ahead and throw them down in there. Or again, if you have any advice on for other people on how to do this maybe better, more efficiently, etc., please feel free to contribute. This plating solution can be stored and used. Again, I don't know how to continually tell if it's still viable or not. But I will save this just in case. I don't plan on doing any other plating anytime soon. But I'll just, store it in a sealed container inside just in case. And again, if you see any of those straggling particles at the bottom, just go ahead and filter those out for future use. And here it is all polished up. Just a quick polish job. You can still see some surface imperfections because I didn't prep it prior to plating very well, if at all. But that's okay. Good enough. And here it is next to a factory nickel magazine. So very close, again, except for some slight imperfections. But the actual effect is very, very close. All right, I appreciate you guys watching. If you made it till the end, I gotta go. Bye.